When I started the podcast, it wasn't even intended to be solely about hunting. From Full Draw Film Tour, I have a vegan-free shirt. I almost wore it to their grand opening.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
But it's a sacred thing. It's like church. I equate it to church. And he's sitting there, he's like, oh, I tore my knees. Oh, I can't continue on. Oh, wait, no, I can because I'm not a pussy like Living Country in the City. I'm not gonna sit and just go after any and every brand. I've had a few brands approach me and I've turned them down. Funny enough, that's not even close to one of the most downloaded episodes.
Really?
But that is one of my favorites.
Hey y'all, this is Sam and you're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Put down your latte and pull on your boots.
You and I and everybody listening to this owns 640 million acres.
I think he killed more deer drinking his coffee, smoking a cigarette in the pickup truck than I did spending all that time freezing my butt off.
Something that I would hope is that people realize that those are wild animals and they have savage natures.
I look forward to packing animals out. I look forward to that pain of success.
Doesn't matter where you were born. It doesn't matter where you live. I've said it before, and you know what? I'll say it again louder for the people in the back. Your present circumstance should not limit your passions.
This is Jay Scott of the Jay Scott Outdoors podcast.
Hey, this is Ryan Callahan.
Hi, this is Jules McLean.
Hey everybody, Jason Carter here with Epic Outdoors.
Hey guys, this is Tim Burnett with Solo Hunter.
You're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Hey y'all, I'm out in Montana just finishing up my elk hunt. And y'all, because it is crazy and it is hunting season, I've had a few interviews fall through and have not been able to get together with the couple of people that I wanted to release for this week. So I don't have a new episode for y'all this week. But to tide y'all over, I was actually a guest on the Restless Native podcast with Brad Luttrell. He's one of the co-founders of the Go Wild app. If y'all have been following me on Instagram, you may have noticed me posting about it a while ago. And while y'all that have been listening for a while may have pieced together bits and pieces about my story and what I'm doing, we really get into, well, just about everything about me. It's kind of fun being on the other side of the mic again. So I thought I'd share this one with y'all. And hopefully this will tide y'all over until I'm able to release a new episode next week. So without further ado, here is the Restless Native podcast with Brad Luttrell and me as a guest.
Today on Restless Native, I have no idea what you're about to hear about from today's guest because I have not yet recorded the interview. I was thinking about it and I decided to do today's intro for the podcast unscripted and to do it before the interview instead of waiting until afterwards and pulling it all back together in a nice kind of pre-written, more thought out intro. And this could be for better or worse, but here are the things I know about today's guest. I admire him for his honesty. I admire him for his integrity behind what he's doing. I think he's more sophisticated at marketing than a lot of the people I've seen doing it for or within the outdoor industry. I think he brings something from working outside of that. He's got a skill set that maybe is a little less common, or maybe it's just more refined. I think Sam's a good storyteller, and he's a good interviewer, and just a fun guy to talk to. I've gotten to meet him. I met him this summer at the Professional Outdoor Media Association conference, and funny enough, we didn't actually record when we were together. We were both recording, as you've heard, over the last few shows of mine and his as well. You know, we were both recording a buttload of content to release later, and we didn't actually even talk to each other. So now here we are bringing it back together. And what I find interesting about Sam is he's kind of like me. He's an outsider to the industry. He's probably been doing something related to the outdoor industry about as long as I have. I met him honestly through an Instagram account when we started Go Wild. You know, we didn't have an app yet, so I was just getting to know people that I could meet and connect to through that Instagram account. And much has changed since then for both of us. You know, Sam is going to have an announcement about his podcast and he's going to talk about why he did that, what that was like. But I want to hear what I hope to remember to ask Sam about today is what it's been like to be so openly new to the industry. And what he was doing didn't necessarily put him into the industry at first. I think his decision to podcast it and to try to do it at the level he has, that's what really put him in the industry. To just come out and be open about the fact that you're new to hunting doesn't maybe open you up to some of the criticisms that I think Sam has experienced. I distinctively remember unfollowing somebody for a snarky comment to Sam and criticizing his journey and talking about it was over his first kill from a hunt. And I thought that was really rude, but I want to hear Sam's perspective on if he thinks that was due to the fact that he was trying to do something that he could turn into making a living at and was so open about not being experienced in. Or in other words, you're obviously very new to hunting, yet you want to be in the hunting industry. And I want to know if Sam thinks that he's had criticisms because of that, or if it's just I don't know what he's going to say. I really don't. I'm interested to hear this. This guy's really perceptive. He's really observant, and I think he's really texting me right now. Sam, for a podcaster who doesn't have Skype yet, you're off to a slow start. So maybe this is really beyond the hunting industry, but no, I'm serious. Sam got a new laptop, so he's downloading Skype. But anyways, I'm just interested to hear if he thinks some of those criticisms would have been there starting a new podcast, if they would have existed in other ways. Maybe it would have been different criticism. And I'm interested, honestly, I'm curious how much of this he's even picked up on. I mean, I assume he has. I can't imagine you haven't. But I just want to know what it's been like for him. I know I've had instances of being having people be very standoffish to me. And in some ways it's kind of funny because you could play up to a good old boy club that, is very standoffish to new people. Some might even say paranoid. I've experienced some of that. I mean, I experienced some of that last week, in which I had somebody kind of berate me a little bit and tell me that I was new and, though I've got so much time, more experience. And it's kind of bizarre to me that this happens in some ways, but really it's not just outdoor industry specific. I can think back to other instances of this happening in my career. So I guess it's just people. People like to let you know that they've got more experience than you and they know better than you. And what makes the most interesting story out of all that, what makes the most fun story to be a part of and to watch someone tell, is the story in which someone conquers that environment. So the story in which someone does have that challenge and they don't care, and they may get knocked down once, twice, 3 times, but they continue to get back up. I think those are the people that make it. And I think Sam is one of those people. He's had a long road. He's had an interesting road, and I am very excited to hop on this podcast and hear about it. So as Sam probably frantically installs Skype here so that he can dial in, let's get this thing rolling. This is Restless Native with podcaster, writer, and the host of a new show, which we'll find about here soon, Sam Ayres. All right, Sam, you just said it best. It's always nice to show up on somebody else's podcast and not have to do all the hard work with the questions. So welcome aboard the next cushy hour of your life to Restless Native.
Thank you. Albeit, I admit, it's funny being on yours because I always tell people when I recommend them that they need to talk to you, be a guest on your podcast, I'm like, see, Brad's really good at researching people and he'll talk to your 3rd grade teacher and find out that one little weird fact. Me, I'm half of the time I'm lucky if I know your name before I'm interviewing you on the podcast. I mean, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah. So I've done some shows where I do dive in really deep like that, and I've done some where I just show up and I forgot we were doing it, and then all of a sudden we're recording a podcast 10 minutes later. I've had various levels of that. I do usually try to poke around because I usually want to find, my goal is to find what nobody else is asking about. And I used to listen to the shows that people had done before. I don't do that always now because I find it biases me a little bit. I think my brain works enough differently from the other hunting podcasts that I'm not going to come in and it's like Scott Ellis. I got Scott Ellis coming back on my show, and the first time he came on, he's like, all right, which turkey calls do you want me to do samples of? And I was like, no, dude, it's not that kind of podcast. He's like, well, oh, we doing deer hunting? All right, what do you want me to call? I'm like, no, man. Like, we're not going to, like, leave your calls at home. We're not doing that. It's just a totally different vibe than a lot of the other hosts do. Your show's like that, though.
No, I definitely. Mine's so random is because I'll have that episode where, like when I talked with South Cox, we talked about very specifically about traditional bow hunting. When I talked with Jay Scott, what did we talk about? Of course, we talked about coos deer hunting in Arizona. My buddy Locke, we talked very tactically about turkeys. But then I did another episode recently that I'll be releasing in a couple of weeks with Remy Adeleke. He's not even a hunter. Dude's like a former Navy SEAL, just a super badass guy, one of the most inspirational dudes I've ever talked to. And we just literally, it was just an episode about, being a good person kind of a thing, Yeah. So it's funny. I just like rolling with what feels natural.
Some of your shows, like even your really hunting shows, have good life lessons. I still think the show, and I haven't listened to all your shows, I don't claim to, and I know you haven't listened to all mine probably either, but it's always tough with podcasts. But I kind of pick around on yours every now and then and look at different episodes. And the one that I've liked the most was the one with Jessica, where it's like a real-time capture, or maybe you sit down and actually like relived it right after. I think that might have been more what was going on there.
Yeah.
But like you got to hear the ups and downs of the hunt. And it's kind of like the nature of hunting is also life lessons, right? Like you all got a lot of that was about failure and like keeping your chin up. And I think you walked away from that hunt without getting anything, right? So it's like a really tough experience when you thought you were going to come down. It's Texas for pigs. You like think you're going to come down and slay it, and then you had a kind of a hard time, right?
That was so rough. Like that was honestly like. You do. It's a Texas pig hunt. You think, there's not
You're like,
really
where's
much
the helicopter and
that
the AR?
Yeah. I mean, it's still an archery hunt, but there's not much that has a higher level of success there. And man, it was literally just a study in all the possible things that could go wrong in a hunt. And I mean, we had a full week and we saw plenty of pigs. And I mean, there was a lot that was due to my personal like lack of skill in certain areas, and there's other stuff that happened. And
so there's a lot of happenstance too in that episode too, like the wind shifts or whatever. But like that whole time, you guys aren't just talking about hunting. Like it was an interesting show. If anybody's going to check out your show for the first time and check it out, I recommend it. All right, man. Before we get too much. You and I will start bantering and we'll forget where no one knows who you are. Actually, I think a lot of my guys know who you are, but I want you to do an introduction. I always like to try to get that out of the way early. So tell people a little bit about yourself. You don't have to quite go back to birth, but give a little insight. I think for you kind of need some of that background to really understand where you've been and what you're doing.
Well, got the name Sam Ayres. I host my own podcast called Well, we'll talk about it on the show, but as of, I guess, this week, it'll be called The Wild Initiative. Used to be called Living Country in the City. I'm sure we'll get all kinds of into that. But, I'm a rookie. I like to say I am a city-bred country boy. I grew up in the wilds of Los Angeles and Orange County, Southern California. On the mean streets of the suburbs of Orange County. I mean, I just...
you can spot and stalk some like Korean barbecue and tacos with the best of them.
Oh, man. All day long. Y'all think you've had Mexican food, but until you've lived in Southern California, there's nothing like it. And, I'm the adult onset hunter, and I know, we'll get into this, but... I just decided one day I wanted to start hunting. I got into the outdoors and started doing all this country stuff in the city and wanted to document it. So that's kind of where I came from. I guess I'd like to say we're coming into my official third season of hunting. And and I'm excited to see where we go from here. But yeah, that's the elevator version of me.
Then when you started doing the podcast, were you thinking of hunting as an industry, or were you thinking of like, I'm going to tell my story personally?
So the podcast was actually kind of later. The podcast, I want to say, was almost 2 years into quote unquote the Living Country in the City brand. And when I started the podcast, it wasn't even intended to be solely about hunting. Hunting was one of the many facets. So I started this brand to where I had, I use the term brand in quotes. It was literally just an Instagram page and a blog. And I had a lot of friends. I was posting about going and shooting my bow, going to line dancing at country nights, going to these country concerts. And I had a lot of friends that were asking me, they're like, holy crap, I love line dancing. I didn't know you could do that in LA. Where do you do that? Oh, holy crap, I saw you shooting your bow the other day. And I used to do that as a kid and I loved it. Where can I go learn that? And I was just like, it'd be fun to start something that just features this stuff and really kind of centers around reviewing this kind of stuff from the perspective of someone in the city and expanding that. And so I kind of started this blog, and I thought, I'll write a couple of blogs a month. I'll list events, and I'm really long-winded when I write, especially, and I struggled to get myself to write. And like in the first year, I wrote like a handful of blogs, and I just realized I'm like, this isn't for me. So after about a year and a half, something like that, I'd been listening to a podcast. It was actually a political podcast. Boy, the host, he loved to encourage people to start their own businesses, start their own podcasts. He would kind of give people advice and inspiration. And at the same time, I was just getting started into this whole, into focusing more around hunting. And, I was like, well, geez, I wonder if there's any hunting podcasts. And I kind of decided to start a podcast about this living country in the city thing, but also about hunting. And I was going to interview country music artists and gun manufacturers and this and that. And I had one episode with country music artists. It was my very first episode. It was a local group called Honey County. And then my second episode was about hunting. And then the subsequent 116 some episodes that I've done since then were all about hunting.
That's funny.
Suffice to say, hunting took over my life. And
it does that.
I hesitate actually to even say hunting took over my life. Hunting became my life.
Yeah.
It defines me now. It is. I couldn't even think of many things. Like if you asked me, to describe myself in, a handful of words, I can't think of many that would. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any that would take precedence over being a hunter at this point.
Yeah,
or at least trying to be.
Yeah, I think it's always in my batch of 5 there too. I think of some things that are just totally different from it. There's been not lately because of Go Wild. I don't get to run as much, but that's been a huge part of my life over the last 10 years. I think of my family. Obviously, I got kids and a wife. I think of cooking. Cooking comes to mind for me and my descriptor. And then I never thought I was a tech guy. I'm honestly, it's kind of funny because in a lot of ways I'm not good at tech. I don't. The guys here all nerd out when Apple does their. It might be. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how often it is that they do their announcements. Chris is probably yelling at his phone or wherever he's listening to this podcast if he's listening. But they do their annual conference where they release all the stuff, and I don't care. I use a busted iPhone that has been around pretty much since we came out of beta. The team keeps making fun of me because I keep showing people the app on my busted phone. It's not, the screen's not broken. It's just scuffed all up, and I'm like, I don't want the new one. I don't they're getting too big now. I liked my little iPhone 5 that I had back in the day. So in a lot of ways, I wouldn't have defined. Yeah, there you go. I wouldn't have defined myself as a tech guy, but I guess that kind of is worked its way into my description because now I get introduced as the the founder of a tech company, so I guess that's part of it. But I always think about hunting, and I'm like, I'm not just that, but that is such a huge portion of what I do and I don't even get to do it as much as I would like to these days. I think last year I got out for 28 days total, and that's not full days. That's a lot of half-day hunts. But that's a heck of a lot more than the average hunter. And according to our recent surveys, it's kind of funny. We didn't bracket enough in our recent survey with Go Wild members. We did 16-plus days, I think, was like the high-end option, and pretty much everybody's sitting there. I'm like, okay, we should have had more alternatives. But, like, the average person, according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, is three days a year, I think. So I'm like, I'm doing more than a lot, but I'm not doing as much as I want to. And I think when you aren't getting out as much as you want to, it kind of leaves you – like, I feel a lot of ways like I'm not doing it justice sometimes. So – but it's still there, and like when I get to go out, like I didn't get to go dove hunting this year, and it killed me for a little bit to like think about that, and like I was so close to getting to go hunting again. Like I haven't been hunting since spring turkey, and I needed that. Like I'm gonna go deer hunting here, I'm sure soon, but it's like I needed that little bit. Like it resets me. Like in the same way you restart that busted iPhone, you know, when you're using it, like you got to get the memory cleared. Like I kind of got to reset my mind too. And that's what hunting does for me personally.
It's a weird combination for me because it's like you said, the way you phrased it is like you don't feel like you're doing hunting justice in that like it's a sacred thing. Hunting is. It is this ultimately sacred thing to so many of us, and it's like church. I equate it to church. You know, there's so many of those same things to where, you know, you're not out at church, you know, you're not doing justice to God, you know, to simplify the situation. Yeah. You know, don't send me angry emails about my theology, please. But you know,
send them to me and I'll forward them to Sam.
There you go. But like, you know, you don't do hunting right. You don't do it enough. You're not out there immersed in it. You're offending the hunting gods, you know, almost. But then there is also that part to where it does recenter you, and it is beneficial to you too. So you want to be out there as much as possible.
I think, yeah, that's the part that's really hard for me to explain to my wife. Like I've traveled more this year than I have in my entire life for any amount of work. I mean, I was gone every other week through pretty much up until July, and I've had some 3 week in a row travel, and it's rough. And you know, so when I come home, if you want to go, hey, I'm gonna go hunt. Now it's like, for put yourself in her shoes. It's like, well, you just got back and you already want to leave us again. But like in my mind, if I could get out for like even half a day, it makes me present more when I'm home because I can clear all that other stuff out of my head. And I think that's just something that's hard to understand for anybody that's not doing it, right? All right, I'm going to pull us back for a second because we got really deep really quick. Like, what does hunting mean to me? But I want to pull it back because you've had an interesting journey. And like your friends are like, oh, Sam is, you know, the city friends. They're like, Sam's awesome. He goes out and hunts. He's cool. But then you're coming into this other, like, it's a little bit of a good old boy club in some circles. And then there are other people that are really excited about getting people out there. There's a lot of groups that are, you know, different NGOs that are excited about trying to get new people outside. But there's definitely this old guard within hunting that, like, the new guy who doesn't know anything shows up, and there's a little bit of like, shut up, I don't care, or like it's like you know, writing you off, and you don't get a say in this because you're new. And I think the more you kind of try to pry into the industry, the stronger that pushback gets. So I just open-ended, have you experienced any? I know you've been really welcomed in some circles, and like you've gotten in with some cool brands that you're working with, but like on the flip side of that, have you had any negative experiences along the way that come to mind when I kind of bring up some of those examples?
Oh, without a doubt. Just
I thought you were gonna be like, no, it's all cupcakes and rainbows. I could see it in your face. That's where it was going. But no. Okay, what do you got?
It's it's funny. I laugh because as you say this, it's at my old job. They used to call me Country Sam. Which anybody, you have these different cliques and these different groups of people I know where half of these people I know through the hunting industry, they would start laughing and crying. I don't think they could ever, with a straight face, call me Country Sam.
Right.
Because these are all a bunch of good old boys that grew up in
your city,
backcountry Tennessee.
Yeah, you're definitely a city boy. To them.
But yeah, then compared to my friends, my coworkers and all this stuff, my coworkers were the ones, like I said, gave me this nickname, and to them, I'm like this bearded mountain man, that's like steeped in wilderness knowledge.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not. Like I may be bearded, and since I quit my job, I may be a kind of smell like a mountain man occasionally. But it's funny, but people don't know what to make of me, I think. And they, as people, we make immediate assumptions. It's just how life works, how humanity works. I think our heads would explode if we couldn't put people into boxes. And there's a lot of people out there that, after they make their assumptions, they keep an open mind. There's a lot of people that make their assumptions and you can never break away from those assumptions, and they will make no effort to get to know you, listen to your message, or, and so I've encountered a lot of that. I've had a lot of people, like some of the most like hardcore redneck, like the true mountain men, like some of the most knowledgeable guys, some of the baddest guys in the backcountry you've ever met, and they've welcomed me with open arms because they've taken some time to get to know me and realize that I'm trying to be genuine about what I'm doing, and I'm here to learn and to share what I learn with other people, and to really open that up. But then there's so many other people, and I'll give you the story. Is after my first elk hunt, January 2 years ago, I was introduced to elk hunting. I did not know you could do this as a yearly thing. I thought you had to have tens of thousands of dollars and have been hunting for 50 years before you could go into the backcountry and hunt an elk. And I had somebody kind of disabuse me of that notion, introduce me to all these podcasts and all of this. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, and I have to do this. And so I just basically dedicated all of this time to learning to do this. And, once again, I'm a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, man. Like I used to, read fantasy novels, play computer games, and do this. And so I wanted to take on this challenge, and I went out, and it turned out terribly. Second day, I tore the meniscus in both of my knees. I tried to push through it. I spent a few more days hiking and finally had to have a buddy help pack me out. And I posted about this mostly to share. I had like, I don't know, 1,000 followers at the time, maybe on Instagram. Nobody was barely, I had a little bit of a following on the podcast, and nobody really knew who I was unless they listened to the podcast. And all of a sudden, I got a couple of these, very alpha male bro types. I won't name names because most everybody knows who they are. But they found my post about it, and I was just sharing with my friends and family and everybody who listened to the podcast kind of what happened. And, I had a lot of people that were invested in this with me, and I talked about what happened. I tore my knees. Suddenly I have these dudes with like 40,000 followers hopping on my, literally, I've never even interacted with before. One of them puts up a post And he's sitting there. He's like, oh, I tore my knees. Oh, I can't continue on. Oh, wait, no, I can because I'm not a pussy like Living Country in the City. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? And keep in mind, like, I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of at a pretty low point. You know, I'm in a significant amount of pain with 2 torn knees. What I just spent basically, I don't know, how many months is that? 6-8 months from January to September, something like that, without counting. I just spent all of that time solely dedicated to this endeavor that effectively ended in a couple of days.
In misery.
And in abject misery.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I have these dudes I've never heard of ripping on me. I had all these stupid meme pages coming after me, making posts, and I'm like, you know, I'll admit it got to me.
Yeah,
not as much as it would have got to some people, but didn't feel good. I was lucky enough, though, I'm the type of person where that stuff pisses me off more than anything else. And I'm more likely to give them all the middle finger and work harder to prove them wrong next time. Additionally, I was also lucky enough that through the podcast, I had talked with some amazing people, and I had developed friendships with some really amazing people. And a lot of them had seen what was happening and reached out. And, you know, that's, you know, people like Jess. You know, we were talking about Jess earlier. She and her husband Braxton both reached out and were we're super encouraging through this. Amazing people like Shed Crazy, Ben Dedamonte. I mean, Aaron Snyder even reached out. You know, I was talking to him, and you know, I had some amazing people reach out with encouragement and to say, F these guys. What you did was freaking awesome. And since then, you know, it slowed down a bit, but there's definitely a whole group of people who have a certain opinion and they don't bother learning and they like to talk crap. And my response has always been, have you ever listened to my podcast? And they're like, no, why would I listen to that crap? And I'm like, well, because then you would realize that I don't present myself as an expert. I present myself as the complete opposite.
Right.
I mean, so
you think that their perception is you're like a wannabe trying to act like you know how to do all this stuff, and it's really more of your documentation that you don't.
Exactly. And if I learn something, I'll share it with someone. I will pass along, but it's not me saying, oh, I have all of this backcountry knowledge and I know how to do these things. It's me saying, hey, I don't know how to do these things. Why don't you listen in while I talk to this super smart person?
Right.
Like,
yeah, your shows are essentially
fly on the wall.
Like, teach me for an hour and a half, and everybody else will get to learn something, right? Like,
is there a better reason to start a podcast? I mean, like,
well, that's why Cody Rich started his show too. I mean, as much as Cody Rich knows, you know, he started his so that he had a good excuse to talk to people that were better than him, and I think there's some integrity behind that, and there's that authenticity. To me, is what makes it a good show. And you know, what's funny, man? I think I know who you're talking about because I actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe one of these guys came back around when you did kill your first animal with a bow and had some snarky comment to the effect of like, "Oh my God, he finally killed something." Does that sound familiar?
Oh, I mean, I've had a couple people. I don't think those particular people who are talking crap initially. I don't think they ever came back around and said anything.
Well,
there was that one dude. There was that one dude that came on and started talking smack about the size of my deer, and I just kept sharing his posts and laughing at him. And he lost his ever-loving mind. And like he was like threatening. I mean, all kind of like there was so much crap, and he looked up my friends on Instagram and on Facebook and like started talking crap too. And I mean, I got I shared it. I laughed at him. I also may have screenshotted a few of them and sent it to his place of employment.
Oh, there's that. So the guy I saw,
funny, but...
the guy I saw said something to that effect, and I actually unfollowed. I've been following him a long time. I think it was from maybe the Go Wild account. You know, we had interacted with him before, and you know, I'm just not into that. Like that, I don't understand where that comes from. And I guess you said it, it's alpha. You know, they feel like they have to be so territorial and keep anybody away from what they feel like they've built. To the point of one of these guys that I'm thinking of, and this may have nothing to do with you, but it's a hilarious example. I'm not going to name him, but I'm going to make fun of him a little bit here. He had posted one time, and it was about how I mean, and I think he was like kind of joking, but he was also kind of serious about how he's Insta famous with like, and he had 40,000 followers, and I'm like, dude, that's like 4 times the size of my hometown, which has like, I could count the number of red lights on one hand. Like that's not Insta famous by any means. Like he was going, like I've seen him post multiple times, and I finally unfollowed him too, but about how like people were jealous of what he had built and da 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 da. And I'm like, I know, like I'm not knocking anybody that has built a following like that of that size, but like at the end of the day, all that can be taken from you. And the question is like, are your followers on there? Are the people who are connected with that story, are they really there for you, or how have they gotten to follow that Instagram account? I think of your podcast, like if somebody shows up every week and listens to you ramble on with somebody else for an hour and a half, like they probably care about you. That's a true following. And in a lot of ways, I would rather have 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 podcast listeners than 40,000 followers on any social platform. But I just I find it to be interesting that people have decided that like having those followers are what or like that's the metric of achievement. And I'm like, it isn't an achievement on the way to like building something, building a brand, building the relationships, but like in itself, it's nothing. I can go buy that on eBay and there'll be real people, maybe be in the Middle East and whatever, but it's like, I'm not impressed by that, I guess is what I'm saying. And a lot of the interactions you're talking about, to me, I think it's a little bit of territorial pissing, trying to keep somebody from who they see as a good content creator, maybe not the hunter they are, but trying to keep some of that at bay. So it's just interesting to me. I think 90% of the people I've probably met in the hunting industry have been anti that, but there is some of that goes on, and even just if you wanted to just see this play out, just post the question of compound bow or crossbow, and you'll see that 10% come out really quickly, or you can do fixed blade or mechanical broadheads, and you'll see that 10% come out really quickly. But 10% can make 100% of the noise. I think that's the problem with this, and that's just troll life. That's not anything particular to hunting. It's just nasty once that stuff gets activated, and it definitely sucks to be the victim of it when it's pouring on strong.
It's it's one of those things. A lot of these people, I get it. They were raised in it. It's quote unquote, it's their territory. It's their world, and I'm infringing on that. I'm saying this with sarcasm, if those of you can't tell. And
I'll play my sarcastic music in the background of this section later.
There we go. And it's, I don't know, I think subconsciously, and they'll be the first to deny it, but they feel like something's being taken away from them. And, there was a guy, he had been following me for a while. He's a Southern California guy. And he's a pretty big hunter. This was one of the first times I ever really got some hate. And he had been following me for a while, and he had sent me some advice about how I was shooting my bow, and I don't know, he thought I was tilting my head funny or something. I can't remember. And I had said, "Oh no, I'm not really doing that. It's just the angle of the photo. But thanks for the tip. I'll keep that in mind," or something. And I don't think he liked that I didn't suddenly say, "Oh yes, you're the archery god, and I bow to your expertise." And so then a little bit later, I had posted something, like months later. I posted something because somebody had been talking crap, And I called him out on it, and I made like an Instagram story just basically saying like, hey, why would you do this? Why would you come into someone's yard and just talk crap about something they were proud of? And he, like, I think he was drunk or something, but he writes me and gives me this. I mean, it was like 3 paragraphs long about you're taking stuff away from real hunters and da 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 da. And I'm like,
yeah, dude, those people come out of the woodwork. Like I don't want to say that it's everywhere, but it does exist, and that's why I brought it up to you. It's like I know you've been victim to some of that, and it does happen, man. I got when we started growing the Go Wild account, we had some of those people coming out because we were trying to grow. We didn't have an app yet, so that was going to be a good marketing tool for us. So we were posting a lot of variety of content. And I don't know a lot about elk hunting. And there's been times when we posted something about out west or hunting up in Alaska, and I've had people like come out tooth and nail like to correct you, to let you know that they know more than you. And it's interesting, man. There's something probably deeper inside there about humanity that causes people to do that. It's probably less about hunting, but I think hunting is so tied to our humanity that it almost like it feels a little bit stronger than if you were to be like, yeah, dude, I'm buying a Chevy, and they're like, dude, Ford's the only way to go. Like, people just don't get that angry. Not to what I've seen. I haven't seen it with anything else to where people get so mad as some of these conversations we're talking about. It's next level.
People feel like they're entitled to something because they know how to hunt, and they don't like the idea that marketing is involved in hunting. And because it's such a primal thing, it's such a primal piece that's so that speaks so much to the core of who we are as people, the fact that there's marketing involved in it at all dirties it.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get why they feel that way, but I've also worked in marketing and advertising for the past 15 years at this point. And so, it's just a natural part of life. Yeah, you may not like it, but here's the deal. There would be no hunting industry for you to buy these awesome products. There would be that innovation wouldn't be there. That, the money to create this awesome new compound bow, to improve and get these new, really nice new dovetail sights or whatever, or, dial-in bow sights or these new optics. It just wouldn't be there if there wasn't marketing. And it's an integral part of any industry, and people don't like it because it dirties it up. And I think it's that much more quote unquote offensive to people because it's such a raw and primal thing like hunting. And so they feel like I'm a good hunter. I should be entitled to this stuff. And whether or not it's in the front of their mind or it's subconscious, I should be the one getting, and once again, I barely get anything for free. I get like sunscreen and bug repellent for free, and that's about the extent of it. I occasionally get
from your mom?
Some hats and
your mom's like, Sam, stay safe.
No, but she has offered to pay for my InReach subscription.
Oh yeah, see, that's a very mom-driven thing too. That's funny.
Oh yeah. But yeah, there's not a lot that I get for free. I do get the occasional like hookup from a friend more than anything else, but it's not like I'm getting free bows and going on free hunts every year. No, I pay for most everything like most people. But
let's talk about that a little bit.
I don't know.
Let's talk about the reality of what it means to, because you are, when we do our chart on Go Wild, you're one of the more influential people there, and that's measured by not just followers. We look at content and how often you post and how much engagement you get. You do well there. You do well on Instagram. Your Instagram gets what I would consider above. I haven't looked at it lately. I don't know how many followers are you at.
I think I'm between 25 and 26,000.
So you're in that neighborhood, and last I saw, you were getting pretty good engagement, like a couple dozen comments on a lot of your posts, and so I would consider you somebody that's kind of moved into that what marketers call that micro influencer. So, you've kind of stepped into the point to where people see that your followers must be real because you're actually getting people to comment on your content. Mm-hmm. Now, I imagine with you do a good job of it. So a lot of those are probably you responding back, but you're still getting real people to ask you questions, talk about the gear you use and whatnot. So what has that been like with brands? Because this is a question I get a lot of with people that are trying to start a new thing. Like, how do I approach brands? How do I handle these conversations? What's that like?
It's tough, man. A lot of it is here because a lot of it is how my approach is different than a lot of people getting into the quote unquote influencer game, the dirty word. I'm not gonna sit and just go after any and every brand. I've had a few brands approach me out of the blue. And whether or not it's because I've used their product just because they came across me and they think I'd be good to promote it, and I've turned them down. I had a knife company come to me, and it was a good product, but I didn't feel like I was the right person for it, and so I turned them down because I wanted to use someone else, a different product that I'm paying for. Same with some packs and tents as well. There's a different product that I felt comfortable with that I wanted to use. And so I didn't feel comfortable taking their business and promoting their product. Not that it was a bad product. As far as reaching out, I'll only reach out to someone, a product, a group that I feel comfortable with, that I've tried, that I use, that, and so depending on the product, I may already have a somewhat existing relationship with them. And it's different every single time. Sometimes I'll reach out of the blue, be like, hey, I want to talk to you about some marketing opportunities, things like this. And, I have my different funnels. I have my podcast and I have the Instagram and the more influencer side of things. And they're different. I handle those in very different ways with companies. And it's not like you get a bunch of followers and suddenly the heavens open and people just start raining product on you.
It's definitely becoming less like that too, because brands are picking up on, there's been enough stories now of like, for weeks this one was routing around on LinkedIn of influencer with 2.5 million followers couldn't sell 6 T-shirts, and stuff like that is making marketers more aware of the need for tracking conversions. So there's a whole lot of discussion around tracking and how you can do that with influencers. So, and the thing is, once you take somebody's money, you better be able to deliver, or that's the last of it you're going to get, right? So it becomes even harder for the influencer. And I think a lot of that's a slippery slope for brands and influencers, because what's typically going to happen is, okay, I see it on Sam's page. They hit me on a Facebook ad. I see it in email because I've signed up for it, 30 days ago, and I convert on the email or whatever. It's like you played a part in that, but you didn't get credit for it. And so it is a little bit of a slippery slope. Some brands have figured that out better than others, but I think that also needs to come into factor when the influencer signs up. And I've turned some down because of that very reason. It's like, look, I'm going to be wanting to track this, and I just don't know how we would track it with you. Like, I don't know how we would do that with your presence. So I think it's getting tougher on both sides because of the metrics.
Yeah. It's definitely long gone are the days of you hit that 10,000 mark, you get the K at the end of your, at the end of your number of followers. And suddenly, you get a bunch of free product because people are beginning to understand the value of followers, and followers do have their place. Brand awareness is an important thing, but once a company gets to a point where they need conversions, you have to start looking at tracking and engagement and how to get those conversions. But we are getting deep into the marketing side. Yeah,
we're nerding out a little bit. Let's pull it back out. You and I do this. I think we did this on the show where I was on yours too. So I'm curious. All right, so you did what, 70-some shows under Living Country?
I've done 100 and it'll be 116 shows under Living Country in the city.
Give or take 50, whatever. So I'm really up to speed here, guys. I did a lot of research on this show before I started. So what made you let's talk about your life change that happened and everything that, because you got this brand that you've really built in some equity into. People know Living Country Sam, and you changed it. What happened?
So, like I said, I had this brand, Living Country in the City. It was meant to be focused on all things country. Line dancing, country music, hunting, shooting my bow, off-roading, shooting guns, whole thing. From the perspective of how does someone do this that wasn't born and raised steeped in that knowledge. Again, hunting took over my life. So basically after the second episode, that's what the whole podcast turned into. Through a few series of events, I got more and more involved in this hunting life, and I started spending more and more time outdoors and just struggle. I was, it's possible, but I was struggling with the fact that I did not want to be in the city anymore. And that may not be the case with everyone. Yeah. You can love living in the city, but still want to hunt and fish and do all this stuff. But for me, the city just wasn't where I wanted to be anymore. And there was kind of a series of events I had to deal with my boss where he would let me work remotely in between hunts, and our company structure kind of changed, and they were kind of redefining what a lot of our jobs were and our responsibilities and how we were going about them. And through that, and then I actually also went through a really bad breakup, devastating breakup that put me in a really bad spot for several months. Between that, the restructuring, and just everything that was going on, I just went in. I kind of said, "Screw it, I'm kind of done." And I walked into my new boss's office, and I basically said, "Hey, I can't be here anymore. I don't want to leave the company. I enjoy the work I'm doing, but I can't be in LA anymore." And basically, like that, I didn't even have to convince him. He looked at me, he's like, "Okay, if this is what you feel like you need to do, let's figure out a way to make it happen." And so they allowed me to work remotely. And, this was around the beginning of August that I brought this up last year. And end of August, I'd be going on my hunts in Arizona and Colorado. And so, I was kind of planning on doing all of this, doing this big move out of LA at the end of the year. But then I realized, I'm like, if I'm going to be gone for these 2-3 months during hunting season, why the hell am I going to be paying rent? So I pretty much told my boss, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be gone in 3 weeks. Let's make it happen. Shipped all of my stuff up to my family here in Northern California. And I went out hunting for like 2 months. So, that was about a year ago. I mean, just, 2 weeks short of a year, something like that.
Okay. And
really, I had no plans. Everybody would joke about it. They're like, "Oh, you're not living country in the city anymore. Ha ha ha. You're going to call it living country in the country?" I swear, if you told me that joke, I'm not making fun of you. It's just you were one of 500 people that said that to me. Literally everyone said that to me. And, as this past year has progressed and I kind of was pursuing this stuff more and introducing Living Country in the City to people, it required more explanation now. Well, I used to live in the city and this and that, and it didn't feel as authentic. And so I kind of started getting this idea in mind that, well, do I really want to change it? And then, to be honest, if you've ever had to type in my email address, it's really long and really obnoxious.
Dude, as a guy that my email is at timetogowild.com, I feel you. This sucks.
Mm-hmm. And so, not that the Wild Initiative has gotten that much shorter, and it's actually
maybe greater chance
a lot
for
more
misspelling.
Difficult of a word.
Yeah,
it's kind of unfortunate. But long story short, after a long story slightly less long, after lots of domain name searches, thesaurus searches, Instagram name searches, and months of research, Brad. You were privy to the like 3 months I spent brainstorming.
I
brand
wish
names.
I remember a lot of like late night phone calls and text, and mostly text. I think we did a couple calls here and there. I remember a lot of your early ideas, but I don't remember what any of them are now to talk about what it almost was. And maybe we don't want to reveal that. I don't know. But
oh man, I have all the domain names still purchased, man. I mean, there was like Gone Back Country, there is Gone Full Country was one of them.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. I think I'm pretty sure I was a hard no on that. There was another one you had that I liked. I know you came down to Wild Initiative and you had another good one, and I don't remember what it was.
There was like the Wild Citizen or something, or Citizen of the Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I had so many of them.
So
and
if anybody's shopping
there
for
was
a
a
good
lot
podcast, they can hit you up and buy those URLs. What are we selling them for here? I'll take a commission.
Oh man, jeez. The funny thing is now you're the same way. We've had this discussion about buying domain names, but I've got all of these, and I have projects nearly for every single one of them still circling around in my mind. But
I sometimes will hear people say something on a podcast, and I will buy the URL. My buddy Casey does this as well with Tact Calories, and I don't remember what ad it was, but Joe Rogan said something like he was reading off his ad, and he dropped the F-bomb in front of the brand's URL.com. And Casey was listening to it live, bought it on the spot, and redirected it to his website. And then he within like 24 hours he got hit with a cease and desist. But it was pretty funny that he nothing converted. He was like, it was a bunch of garbage traffic, but he got web traffic out of rerouting Joe Rogan's customers to his site. I own several of those kind of URL reroutes. I own several competitor combinations that really I'm not even using appropriately right now. I just bought them, and now they redirect to us if you mistype or you type in the wrong URL, which is kind of a dumb, antiquated way to do things, because nobody's that stupid to where they're just going to be like, oh, this is it. Actually, no, that's not true. People end up on our website all the time, and they ask us how to buy hunting licenses, and that one's fairly common. But I had a guy the other day get so pissed because there was hunting content on Go Wild, and I was being real nice to him. I'm like, I got to ask you, how did you hear about our app? Like, what made you download it? And he walked me through this whole process of, well, I searched for such and such state park, and your website popped up, and I clicked on that. I downloaded the app, and all of a sudden there's just dead animals everywhere. And my friends and I are horrified. This is a terrible, terrible experience. I spent 2 hours looking for the mapping app in Go Wild. I'm like, 2 hours? He said it 2 times, 2 different emails. He spent 2 hours on Go Wild trying to find out how to map, like route himself to that park. And I finally was like, I Googled the park that he told me about, and I was like, bro, you're looking for All Trails. All Trails is a hiking app that does exactly what you want. My app does not. Our app is a hunting and fishing and outdoor app. I was like, you can disable the hunting trails if you don't want to see hunting content, but I feel it's best at this point we part ways. So like I've still to this day don't know how I got there, but like people definitely are not always as smart as you would think they would be with downloading stuff. Like I don't know that I've ever accidentally downloaded an app like that and been 2 hours deep and still not figured out that it was the wrong one.
Yeah, that's a little rough.
It's a little incompetent.
Yeah, let's see. Here's some of my favorites, just really quick. I mean, we're already into it. Another hunting podcast and yet another hunting podcast.com.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's see. I've got Shifting Wild was one of them. The Wild Initiate. I've got the Wild Objective, Claim the Wild, Country, and then I've got a bunch of generic ones: Elk Hunting Podcast, Country Living Podcast, Backcountry Hunting Podcast, Citizen of the Wild. Oh man, I've got so many of these. Anyway,
I was gonna pull mine up, but it's starting to cause lag on the Skype, so I won't. Yeah. But yeah, I can't think of the most bizarre. I think I've killed a lot of the ones I had. Like I had mine and my wife's first name for a while. I had a blog that I was gonna start at some point that I carried for years. I got into like building furniture and stuff. Not furniture, like I've done some decks and I was doing woodworking, and I bought Built with Bourbon and Love, and it was going to be like this like my love of building stuff out of bourbon barrels. I'd never built anything out of bourbon barrels. I just thought it was a cool sounding name.
I think you told me this one.
Yeah.
On the podcast
Probably.
we did.
So we've already talked about this once before. I forgot, but I started saying I thought I told Cody about it. But that one's kind of funny because now I look back at it and I'm like, dude, that sounds like a mommy blog. Like it doesn't sound cool at all. Like in hindsight, that was a terrible name. But I paid $12.99 a year for that thing for like 5 years. I've got. I don't know if I have a lot of bad ones these days. My team mostly runs our domain search, so that's kind of funny. We did.
I won't tell you how long I owned Mad Mall Ninja.
I don't even know what you do with that.
Do you know what a Mall Ninja is?
No.
A Mall Ninja is like that typically overweight dude that's like super tactical and like overbuys all the tactical gear.
Okay.
Doesn't know how to use a single bit of it.
Okay.
And it's making fun of basically the mall cop.
Okay.
Like the overtax.
I still don't know what you do with it, but I understand what it is now.
It was basically I was making custom paracord accessories for like tactical tactical guys,
that's actually
stuff like
funny.
that, and
that was gonna be the brand.
Yeah, and I never got it launched. I had a website half built, and I kept that thing for it had to have been at least 5 years, and I finally let it go because I was sick of seeing it. But
that's funny, man. We bought
anyway.
We snagged downloadgowild.com, which is way better than what we have now, the timetogowild.com, because it's like now you're combining 4 different words. Although Go Wild one word as a brand, it's still 4 words. And then we've got mygowild.com, which is like we have multiple that are better. But we really only use the timetogowild.com because we're 3 years into marketing this thing at this point. I'm like, well, I guess we're sticking with it until I decide to drop $100,000 on gowild.com, which is probably what it would. Well, actually, no, that casino app bought it now, so it's probably gone forever. They'll probably want like $1 billion out of it. All right, man. So you're relaunching as the Wild Initiative, and it's been a slow rollout. We won't get into all the weeds you were telling me about earlier, but what is the new vision for the podcast? Like, where are you taking this thing?
So, I mean, a lot of it's not changing. Really, my weekly releases are still going to be the same thing. You're still going to hear about my misadventures. You're still going to have me asking the dumb questions, or the obvious questions that are not always obvious to people that have been doing this for a long time. And really, I'm still just going to be coming at it the same way. I'm excited. I'm going to be adding some additional stuff to the podcast, and I have a lot of people that have been following me for a while, and they've seen me build this from literally just absolutely nothing to what it is now, and to
making the jump.
People listen,
right?
People
Are we announcing that?
Yeah, exactly.
Do we already say that?
I mean, I guess it's kind of, people know, but, I'm officially doing this full time, along with some other freelancing work is, I've quit my job. I finally, after this last year, continuing on with that story, after this last year of developing stuff with this rebrand, I decided I loved my old job. I loved what I was doing, but it just wasn't what I was passionate about. And I wanted to focus my efforts. It was killing me. Killing myself for something I'm not passionate about, becomes stressful. Killing yourself for something you're passionate about is just hard work, and amazing. So I wanted to be able to focus on this. And so I put in notice at my job recently, and I'm running the podcast full time. Really, it kind of pays for itself. It doesn't really make any money at the moment. So I also do, I'm doing freelance website design, branding, marketing management. So really, I'm focusing mostly on outdoor companies. Honestly, I've also got a few other websites under my belt. I'm working with, a woman that has a ranch, and she makes like custom soaps and things like that. But I also have done a website for a vegan burger joint. That's one of the more interesting ones. So I'm versatile. But I definitely like focusing on outdoor brands. I'm working with other podcasters. I'm doing all of this.
How did the vegan feel about paying you money that they knew good and well you were going to turn around and buy hunting stuff with?
Oh, they've known this for a long time. It was actually one of the executives at our old job. He knew I was the web guy, and he approached me about doing this. And I went to their grand opening, and I have a lot of people have seen it on my Instagram. I have from Full Draw Film Tour. I have a vegan free shirt.
Yeah.
And I almost wore it to their grand opening.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
But they've got a good sense of humor. The people I worked with, and
we had eggplant come in our CSA the other day. Community supported agriculture, for anybody that doesn't know. So it's kind of cool concept if you've never done it. It's you get a random bag of vegetables or fruit from your local farmers every week. So we split one with my brother and sister-in-law, and I got an eggplant, nice big eggplant. And I was like, well, we used to do eggplant burgers back years ago. My wife and I would take one and just dice them. And you can cut them. I don't know if you've ever done this. Cut them half-inch, cook them. You can cook them just like a burger. Salt, pepper them with some olive oil. And they actually make a pretty substantial burger on their own. But I was feeling a little frisky, and it was also a little mushy. It was kind of past its prime. So I decided to blend them up, or chop it up and then food process it with kind of like you would the mixture and consistency was like if you were going to make salmon burgers. And I made these things, and I made the most amazing, huge, ginormous burger. But I got to thinking about it, and I was like, this thing's pretty much vegan. I'm eating a vegan burger right now. And I kind of had a little laugh to myself about it. And I was like, I want to post this on Go Wild. I think everybody that knows me would find it funny, but we have so many new people in the app right now. I was like, somebody might not get it, and they might get really confused about why the CEO of Go Wild is out there eating vegan burgers. The whole thing was coincidental because we had that eggplant from the CSA. But I ended up not posting it for two reasons. One was because of that. I was like, I just don't want the new people to think oh, this is some hippy-dippy crap. And then the other was my picture of this massive burger was kind of terrible because this thing was so massive it wouldn't sit upright. I needed the bamboo skewer through the whole thing. But, dude, it was legit. I mean, I got no beef with a vegan burger. Honestly,
pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. No, they just roll right out of my mouth. But it was good. Now the vegan lifestyle is a whole different conversation, and I've got mounds of podcasts that people can go dive through. I brought up veganism on the podcast with the insurance guy. It's I'm always going to find a way to work something in there about food and sustainability. All right, man. So we're coming down to our last couple minutes here. What do you want people to know about your show, your type of content you're doing? Sell it to us hard here for anybody that's never listened to your stuff.
Yeah. So the show really show's good for everyone. I tend to focus more on coming at it from the perspective of a new hunter, asking questions that somebody new to this stuff that isn't steeped in this knowledge may know. I love educating people. I love encouraging people to try new things. And whether that's you've never been hunting and you want to go hunting, or whether you've been hunting your whole life, but maybe you've only hunted ducks and upland game and you want to go on your first backcountry elk hunt. My passion is getting new people into hunting and getting them to try new things. With this rebrand, I've always wanted to release more content because I just love talking to people. I love sharing this content. Problem is I'm so dang busy. It's hard enough for me to make sure I'm able to release once a week, let alone more than that. So I get a lot of people that approach me about starting podcasts. They've seen me grow this thing, and they don't realize the work behind the scenes that's required and then as far as building an audience. And so I'm actually bringing in some guest hosts, and you'll kind of, as you listen to the podcast, you'll see some additional sub podcast be released on my feed coming up soon, and I'm excited. I'll have a fly fishing podcast joining me first. I've had some other people express some interest, and I'm just working on building a network of other podcasts similar to like a Meat Eater, a Sportsman's Nation, but focusing more on just new exciting content and cycling people through that may have really good content but may not have the avenues to promote it. So I'll still be releasing my weekly, it'll still be what you're used to hearing, but you'll get some additional bonus content throughout the weeks. I'm really going to start promoting a lot more conservation on my website, on my podcast. If you go to my newly rebranded website, it is wonderful and beautiful, and it took me a whole week and a half longer to rebrand than I expected, but I have a whole conservation section on there. It's an exhaustive list of conservation organizations, that you can check out, and you can review by category even. I've got some interesting content on my blog talking about some of my prior hunts and different stuff. But really, the podcast is going to be what it's always been. It's just talking with really cool people about hunting. Some episodes are going to be stories, some are going to be tactical and how to. If you go to my website and you check out it's under the media tab and you click on the podcast there, it'll take you to a page where I have some general categories set up. If you just want to start listening, you go to my page. You can start listening at the most recent. You can start listening chronologically. But if you just want to check out, I have some of the most popular episodes up. I have episodes that center around my hunts. I have episodes that center around conservation, episodes that center around women in hunting. I've talked to some really amazing women in the hunting industry, and I have a whole slew of episodes with those. I have episodes around youth in hunting, elk calling, predator hunting. I have a bunch of them categorized, so you can check that out on the website. And yeah, I'm really excited to go this new direction. Another little personal advertisement. Like I said, if you all are looking to start a brand, start a website, if you're looking for someone to help produce your podcast, if you're looking for any of this, these are all services I offer. If you're looking for someone on the back end to just update stuff constantly for you on the website, I do that too. But, that's me. I'll be sharing my content, sharing my hunts this year. I really, if you're looking to get into hunting, it's the perfect podcast for you, man. If you are new to hunting and you want to try something new, check them out. I'm curious, Brad, you mentioned the episode with Jess is one of your favorites. That's always been one of my favorites too. I'm curious, some of the others that you've listened to off the top of your head. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, the first one that comes to mind, you interviewed a guy who was just like the ultimate antelope hunter. I think it was a antelope guy, and you guys talked about like all the ins and outs of spot and stalk antelope hunting. I think that's what it was about.
Who's deer?
Was that what it was? Okay, I can't remember. I listened to this so long ago. I remember learning a lot. Obviously, I did not retain enough. But who was that?
That was Jay Scott. He runs the Jay Scott Outdoors podcast.
Okay, yeah. His show's really popular. But I really enjoyed his. And then, your Shockey one is going to be the one that most people kind of refer to, right? Is that the show that like everybody's like?
Funny enough, that's not even close to one of the most downloaded episodes.
Really?
But that is one of my favorites. Just because it's Jim Shockey, how can you not? But it's one of my absolute favorites. My most downloaded episodes are the ones with Corey Jacobson. I've got 2 episodes with Corey. One I do like a super idiot's guide to elk calling with him and Jason Phelps, which is really cool. And then I do another general one with him. And then Elk Nut Paul Medell. That's my number one most downloaded episode.
Man, he's
then,
like, I need to get him
yeah.
on mine because he's apparently everybody's most number one downloaded if he comes on. But I also like some of the run and gun ones you've done at trade shows. I can't remember what. I honestly, dude, this is a terrible question for me because I can't retain anything. I don't even know what I listened to last week.
I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
And you know, I haven't listened in a while, but I used to listen to. I was probably hitting about every other one of yours, and I did that probably consistently up until episode 70, which is apparently where I forgot you existed. I'm like, yeah, you did 70, right? So I honestly, man, like there was I probably listened to about 20 or 30 of your shows, and now, of course, you asked me about them, and none of them come to mind. So
no, I would be the same ways because I'm like, I know I've listened to your podcast a bunch of times, and it's like I ingest the information I learn. Like with Cody's, I could not tell you probably a single guest that I've listened to on Cody's podcast. I could, if somebody brought something up, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing that on his podcast.
Yeah.
But I
almost
ingest
pulled
that
up
information
your website to cheat and remind myself of who I've listened to. Because there's another one, I think it was Mule Deer. Have you had like a Mule Deer specific guy on?
I've had a few. I've had Matt Howell, Muley Slayer. I've had Matt Howell from the Mule Deer Hunter, Mark Smith, Muley Slayer. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few Mule Deer episodes. Honestly, you know, if you want to check out the episodes, the newly revamped podcast page has some cool topical breakdowns, kind of some high level stuff, and it's a great place to start. I want to put up a section. I need to put up a section of my own personal favorite episodes. But yeah, long story short, the Wild Initiative is coming. I've got some awesome episodes to start out with. You know, some guests that your listeners would be familiar with. You know, recorded within a few days of when yours were as well. But you know, I do
really
like
the way you're breaking out.
This.
I like the way you break out like your fitness and the storytelling and you know, women, youth, yada yada. I think it's cool that how you're breaking that out and thinking through like less than just like there are very few podcasts and I'm going to listen to all of them, right? Like I kind of hop around and I like that you're acknowledging that that's how people digest the content. So it's kind of a cool breakdown here for somebody that wants to just see what this is all about. You know, if you're into the, you know, the tips and tactics, you got that section there spelled out, easy to find and filter through, or they can dive into gear. Definitely a pretty cool way to sort your content. So, oh, I know, Bows on Bears with Douglas. Is it how you say his last name?
Doug Bose. Yeah,
Doug Bose. I listened to that one. And that was one where it was interesting enough to where I was like, a lot of times you're not paying attention. I was like stopping it so I could come back to it later. I have this fascination with bear hunting. I've only been on like one bear hunt, which is kind of a joke to call it a bear hunt because me and my buddy went and sat out in the woods for 12 hours, didn't see anything, and then the season closed because that's how Kentucky works on Modern Gun. The quota was met and the season was done. So, but I have this interest in it, and I do remember enjoying that show.
The episode I think you're thinking of is the one with Chad. It should be in that tips and tactics section.
Yeah, it was a more tactical show.
I call it like lessons from the Mule Deer Whisperer or something. He is like, I mean, you want to talk about a guy with mule deer knowledge, like that's an episode you'll listen to twice through, take notes both times, you know, pause, rewind, all of that. It is, I can't remember what episode number it is, but it's in that tips and tactics section on the, if you go to my website, thewildinitiative.com, hit the podcast menu on there under media. You know, I share a lot of content on there, you know, so check it out, browse the website.
All right, I'll put a link. I'll put a
I
link to it in for sure. That way people can check it out. All right, man. Wait, what's your new Instagram handle? Because you were telling me earlier that there's like that was your Facebook page. It's all janky, right?
It's Facebook and Instagram are janky right now. At the current moment, it's still Living Country in the City. It will be switching over to the Wild Initiative in a week or two, or in about a week probably, whenever Instagram finally releases my handle.
And you're Sam
really
Ayres
stressful.
on Go Wild, right? And I think you have it in your subhead.
It's
Or like in the.
I have in parentheses after my last name, I have the Wild Initiative as well.
All right.
If y'all are deciding to go to visit the Wild or to sign up for Go Wild, make sure you use my link at what is it? My Go Wild.
I love it.
I want my free stickers, man.
Yeah, man. I got a boatload of them in here.
My Go Wild.
It's mygowild.com.
I gotta update it because
/ and then you get to pick your name. And I'm
gonna update that right now to because right now it's still Living Country in the City, so I've got to change that to the Wild Initiative.
All right, there you go. mygowild.com / the Wild Initiative, and you can follow. It'll take you to download the app, but you'll follow Sam once you get there. All right, dude. Well, appreciate you coming in, and this was kind of a fun free for all today. I wish I had more time. I got a meeting I got to go to, but I appreciate you hopping in and kind of talking a little bit of everything. We talked bullying, eggplant burgers. Literally stuff that I didn't even think about getting into. Veganism always comes up on here. I don't know what's up with that, but thanks for doing it, Sam.
We'll just have to continue it on my podcast.
That's right. I'll hop over. We'll do. We'll just after my meeting, I'll come back. All right. Thanks, dude.
Talk to you soon, man. Bye.
All right, thanks, Sam, for coming on to Restless Native and telling a little bit about the chaos that has been, going from Sam in the city to Sam living it up in the country to the Wild Initiative. It's been fun to watch Sam's journey personally over the years, and I've been wanting to get him on. And I kind of always knew I wanted to get him onto the podcast, but I wanted to see what was going to be that inflection point in which he made the jump, and it made sense because I've always wanted this podcast to be people that are making it in the outdoors, and sometimes that's people like Sam who are a little more fresh in the game, or sometimes it's somebody who's a veteran like a Mark Boardman or a Scott Robinson. So trying to keep it fresh over here on Restless Native. All right, one quick announcement from Go Wild. I think I mentioned this last episode at the end or at some point, please go check out the Near Me feature. If you have your app open, tap up at the top, there's a little Near Me, and it's going to filter your trail mix down to content that's being posted around you. And this isn't like the last hour, but it's like, it could be the last hour, but it's not just the last hour. It's going to pull content over like about a week or so span initially. And what it's doing is it's helping you find what other people are doing according to your interests. So you can actually either, if you wanted to, tap the compass and then go pick like bass fishing or deer hunting, or if you tap that little map at the top right, you can pick any of those things too. And then you can say, these are the people that are near me doing that thing. So what we've actually invented is the ability to see what's happening near you, and you can filter it by category. It's awesome. I love it. It has given so much more depth to the app. It's cool to see what's happening across all of elk hunting, but maybe I want to see what's happening in elk hunting in my area. Or maybe it's deer hunting in my area, or bass fishing, trout fishing, fly fishing, whatever it is, you can filter by that. So I hope you guys try that out, test it out, and I've gotten a lot of really good feedback, but if you're having some kind of bug or something with it, let us know. We haven't heard anything yet, but I would love to if you are experiencing any problems with it, because that's how we fix them. So check that out. That's all I got for today. Again, thanks to Sam for coming on. Thanks to you guys for always spending so much of your week with me. It's always a pleasure to get to have people that sit down and give us their time to hear about the stories we can tell through this platform. That's it for today. I'm out.
Thank you for listening to The Wild Initiative. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher, and head on over to thewildinitiative.com to get show notes, check out the blog, gear discounts, other podcasts from the Wild Initiative family, and more.